Fan.
From the fish-filled Midwest lakes to the deep woods of the north, upland prairies filled with pheasants to the whistling wings of duck ponds, this is Saturday Morning Fan Outdoors, your show for hunting and fishing tips, topics, and conversations. You can also send us a question or opinion by emailing us, booth@kfan.com. Here's your host, the Fan's Captain Billy Hildebrand.
Well, good morning, Fan Outdoors faithful. And we are glad to be with you, although with you is kind of relative today, because we're not with you. We are in western Minnesota, sitting in pitch darkness. It is darker than dark. In fact, if I exit and stand right outside, you won't be able to see your hand in front of your face. That's how dark it is. But this is a very special morning, and I am not kidding. This is something that I have wanted to bring you for more years than I care to remember. I have dreamt about bringing Fan Outdoors to you from a duck blind. And even more important today, we are bringing you Fan Outdoors from a duck blind with an Argo. Yes, the Argo. If you don't know what it is, well, first of all, if you don't know what it is, let me introduce my guest to you, because he is right next to me as we sit in the rain, the wind that's blowing 30 miles an hour, and not long ago we had thunder, we had lightning, we had heavy showers, and we've got light rain going on as we speak. But my guest to you today, with me for the duration of the show, his name is Hunter Dutcher. Hunter Dutcher. And he is sitting to my right. Hunter, good morning.
Good morning, Billy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's fun out in there.
It is.
And you are a duck hunter, so that makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, sir. It's been a little bit, probably since college, but it's good to be back.
Well, for our listeners, Hunter, tell them about the Argo. What is the Argo?
You know, the Argo is a machine unlike any other. Simply put, it is an amphibious vehicle. So what that means is you can go land to sea with 6-8 wheels, go right through your bogs, your marsh, your swamps, whatever the terrain may be. You're able to just drive right through it with the wheels themselves, and you'll just keep on going.
I drove one out here. I drove Hunter and I out here. It was the most incredible experience to have control of that, knowing that I could just turn right and off into the swamp we go. We had scouted the place. We had picked a location that would not only be keeping us a little out of the wind, because the wind is blowing the mics out, so we couldn't bring it to you. But we found an out-of-the-way place. I had no idea what to expect from the Argo, and yet we just plowed right through everything to come out here in the darkness. It's phenomenal.
It's a lot of fun. It really is.
I have no idea how to explain it other than that. So we're out here, and we're going to bring you the show, but along with talking about the Argo as we go along with Hunter, we're also going to try to, for those of you listening who have never been in a duck blind, who have never experienced it, We're going to try to bring you some of the emotions. Now, my son Eric and his buddy Jared and Hunter also, I do not have my shotgun. It's back at the farmhouse right now. But those guys have got guns. There are about 36 decoys right in front of us. But I have no idea. Eric and Eric put them out there. And I have no idea. He came back and told us the water is exceptionally deep. And he's right at the top of his waders right now. And the wind, we're a little bit sheltered where we are. And if you're a duck hunter, you know how important that is, because these birds are going to be looking for a place to come that's quiet, that they can land and get out of the wind too and be safe. But we're attempting to bring you the emotions, the sounds, the feelings, and all that goes along with duck hunting. And a little bit along the way, too, we'll be joined by Tom Dokken of Oak Ridge Kennels, and we're going to be talking dogs with Tom. We'll be checking in a little bit later with Bob St. Pierre. Tackle Terry will be along, and I don't think he'll be in the duck blind. I'm not sure, but I pretty much doubt it. In fact, he may not be fishing either in this weather if it's anything like this. So we are located out in extreme western Minnesota, right on the border of North Dakota. We're about 20 miles from North Dakota as we speak, in the glacial moraine area as we went and did some scouting yesterday, looking around. And very honestly, we didn't see many ducks, but there's lots, as you all know, we have a plethora of water that's on the landscape. And Hunter, that's where this Argo is going to shine, with all the water and all the moisture that's there.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it more now, especially with all the rain that we've had. Conditions are very wet. Places are getting flooded out. Everyone from large-scale private property owners all the way to commercial guys are needing their Argos more now than ever.
So that's a plus. We're going to talk to you an awful lot about Argo, too, today, because without Argo and without the folks at, is it Pro Power Sports?
It is Power Lodge.
Power Lodge. I'm sorry, I've got that in my mind. Power Lodge. Without the folks at Power Lodge, and I apologize, we couldn't do this, because they are the entity that made this happen for you and especially for me. A dream that I've had for a long, long time, to bring you the emotions that we feel in the duck blind and some of the things that go on here. We're about an hour from shooting time, too. So darkness, we have found the definition for dark, and it's right here where we are, because it's dark. We will take our first pause of the morning, and we'll be back, and Hunter Dutcher and yours truly will be talking about the Argo and all the things that it will do. And I don't know if there's anything it can't do, very honestly. But we're going to find out. If there is, we'll find out about it. So we've got lots of things going on, mainly to bring you a duck hunting genuine experience right around the corner, and only from Fan Outdoors. Okay? We'll be right back after this.
This is Fan Out.
The Fan.
Past the city limit sign, where there's a honky-tonk near the county line. The joint starts jumping every night when the sun goes.
13 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock on a Fan Outdoors Saturday morning. More importantly, a Fan Outdoors coming to you live from a duck blind, waiting for a half hour before sunrise, beginning our duck hunt. Yep. And Hunter and I are here waiting for the sun to come up, but in the meantime, we would like to thank Argo for partnering with us on this adventure, because without them we couldn't have made this make this happen. Argo and Power Lodge. And Power Lodge, the one nearest me, is right out on Highway 10, just outside of Anoka. And Hunter is here. Hunter Dutcher is here with me right now. Hunter, when we're talking about Argo, and that when people are coming in and they're asking about it, what are some of the things that they're looking for?
You know, the toughest thing with the Argo is the education process, right? The machine is such a unique machine. There's really nothing else like it on the market, right? It's very different from your conventional ATV or your side-by-sides, right? And so to be able to interact with the customer is kind of a process that has to take place. But you kind of start with your basics. Find out what the application is going to be, right? You really got to make sure that it's a market and a customer that they're going to have a use for it. But more often than not, within the first 5-10 minutes of a conversation, you're able to tell, yep, this is definitely going to need an Argo for your needs.
And I noticed before we headed out here, we put plugs in the back of the Argo.
Yes. That's
like a drain plug for a boat.
It is. You're exactly right. And ultimately, it's because the design of the Argo is like a boat. That's in part what gives it its amphibious aspects. So what happens is the way it's set up is it's shaped like the hull of a boat, right? It's a high density polyethylene that is formed to the body, right? So then what happens is with those wheels are shaped with the chevrons and the ribs to actually propel you through the water.
Huh.
Yeah. So with that, just like a boat, it has its water line. So once the machine is submerged to a certain point, whether it's your 100-foot lake or your bottomless bog or swamps, it's going to hit that point and it's going to go buoyant, right? So then what happens is that's when your wheels are going to take over. So now your wheels are actually all spinning together, and that is what gives you the propulsion through the water. Interesting.
Now, if it was raining like it was this morning and we're taking on water, do we have to bail it?
Not at all. Not at all. So they all are going to come standard with an onboard bilge pump.
Okay.
So whether you're doing large water travel or whatever it may be, rain, heavy rains, and you are taking on water, go ahead and flick that bilge pump on. Let it do the work. It'll bail you right out.
I was intimidated thinking about it before I had seen the units that you and your dad Dean had brought along. I was expecting the two handles to be able to have to maneuver those and be able to drive it. It's not that way at all.
It is not. It is not. Now, once upon a time, they very much so was that way.
It was.
Yes, but through lots of research and development, they've actually been able to change that. So now it is a true handlebar steering, right? And over time, they've been able to make that even better. Right, so one of the things is it's always started as kind of your conventional skid steer steering.
Okay.
Right. So what that means is with the transmissions, your classic transmission is going to offer you where when you turn, one side of the machine is going to stop, and the other side the wheels will turn, and that is how you turn. Right, giving you that pivot on point. Steering, so you can pivot right around the trees in the dense woods.
Okay.
Right? So
I noticed, and I think one of either you or Dean were saying that it's true zero turning as far as the radius goes.
Correct. Yep. So again, it all kind of comes back to that skid steer style steering, right? And now what Argo has actually done is they've taken that classic and then they moved into another transmission called the Admiral. Okay, and what that Admiral is, and it has a differential in there, and what that does is it slows down one side of the machine while it spins the other. So what it is it kind of alleviates some of that jerking, throwing around motion, and it makes it a little more user friendly. And now in recent years, just last year, Argo actually has partnered with Hayes Brakes, and what they've done is they put a spring element in that drive system, and what they're calling it is APS, Argo Progressive Steering. All right, and so what it does is it essentially takes that straight line jagged turning of that conventional skid steer style steering and has now allowed the steering to gradually apply pressure. So now you can truly corner with this machine, just like you would on any of your side-by-sides, UTVs. So it really makes it a user-friendly. There's really not as much of a learning curve anymore.
Well, I said, well, I'll hop in with you and you can drive it out there. You said, no, you're going to drive. And I've never driven one of these units before. And we put the radio gear in the back end. We put the everything we needed, my coffee cup, which I've lost track of in the darkness, and headed out. I'd never driven it before, and it was easy to drive.
It is, and that's the exact point that I wanted to get across, is that now Argo has made it so that just anybody with no experience driving these can jump into a machine, even in the pitch black, right? Jump into one of these things, grab the handlebars, and be able to just go. There's no longer that what I call is the half an hour learning curve, right? Until now, where because you'd get into a machine and you really have to get used to it. There's a little practice with the turning. Otherwise, it can be a little rough at first. And now with this new transmission, this Argo Progressive Steering, it is unmatched. It is unlike anything else.
Well, on the way down here, I noticed when we came around one of the corners, leaving the yard, and we're staying in an old farmhouse on a farmstead, and we have access to about 2,000 acres of land with a number of grasslands on it and a number of sloughs and waterways on it. And it's leased land that my son and some other friends have leased, and we're just kind of, we are visiting, so to speak. There was a skunk, and I have had more encounters with a skunk than I care to recall this week. But there was a skunk ahead of us walking down one of the paths that we were following, and my luck with skunks this week is not real good, so we just slowed down a little bit, and he decided he was going to venture off another direction, which is just perfect by me, because as people that follow me on Twitter know, it was day before yesterday, which would have been Thursday, we were out walking the grasslands, and if you're getting ready for pheasant season come next weekend in Minnesota, you'd better have your skunk kit with you, because my young dog Belle decided she was going to tangle with a black and white kitty, and it was a bad thing. So if you don't have the formula, check on the Fan Outdoors webpage, because if it's not there, we'll be sure and get it there. But it's hydrogen peroxide, dish soap, and baking soda in a certain proportion. Unlike Bob St. Pierre, where he just mixes everything together and then drives home from Michigan with windows open. But most of the smell, if not all of it, is gone. And so we started the day very good. But we're out here with the Argo folks, including Hunter Dutcher and Dean Dutcher, my son Eric, and his buddy Jeremy. And they are kind of manning the decoys, if so to speak, wherever they are in the darkness as we bring Fan Outdoors to you. Hunter, with that being said, what are some of the typical things that people are asking you about with the Argo?
The biggest question I get is how far can you go, right? What won't it do? Right, and I know what I can kind of resonate with that, because when you first get into an Argo and you pull up into a swamp or a lake, right? Whether even imagine yourself at a boat launch, right? And you're about to drive straight into it, right? I mean, there's kind of that thought just in your mind, right? Just as is human beings. You kind of think, well, this I can't do this.
You got that right.
Right? Yeah. I don't know. This never done this, and ultimately you kind of just got to go and you trust the machine. And once you're into that, the excitement and joy that it brings, think it just realizing, oh my gosh, I am going through a lake. I just drove into a lake. I am crossing the lake,
and I'm not sinking.
No, and exactly. Or and the biggest thing too is with people that have, especially here in the Midwest, we have a lot of wetlands, a lot of swamps, marshes, and so to be able to work with people who have property, they've invested large amounts of money and land but they just can't access all points of it. Right? And so to be able to get someone into a machine that allows them to truly explore all the terrain is very rewarding, because they come back and they are just so excited that you have been able to help preserve their investment, be able to show how much they can do.
I'll echo that too, because when you and Dean pulled into the yard and I came out to say hello and introduce ourselves to each other, I looked at the machines and it's intimidating. Yes. I mean, they are unbelievably intimidating. But when we sat down in it, it had a real, I don't know how to explain it. It had a feeling that I was really in control. And that may sound kind of stupid, I guess, but it went from intimidation to, this is really cool.
Yes.
This is awesome. And as we're coming down here, I began thinking, and I pulled up to one of the places that we drove it down, so when the sun does finally get light, we can relocate and be down there, and we just drove right into it.
Yes.
I can hardly walk through it.
Yep, that's exactly it. And the biggest thing about that is, especially we even see this with some of the older generations. A lot of them, they've lost the being able to go out and hunt, enjoy the passion, right? And that's one of those things that's very rewarding, is being able to show the older generations a machine like this and show them that this isn't lost. This passion that you have, you still have it, and this machine will allow you to continue to do what you love.
And it's not something that you're going to go out and race somebody with.
Right.
Top speed is what about?
Top speed, so you're really going to be looking around that 20 mile an hour range.
Okay.
So there are models that'll touch around that 23, but for the most part, depending on if you're running a track system on it or not, somewhere between that 18 to 20 mile an hour.
Well, and I don't know what the pulling capacity on it is, but Eric was saying they were pulling bull moose out.
Yes.
And they're well over 1,000 pounds.
Absolutely.
And he said it didn't even, they're the one that the DNR has that they have for the Moose Project, it didn't even phase it. No. I mean, you don't know what's there.
And that's the truth. With the towing capacity between that 1,500, 1,800 pounds, I work with snowmobile clubs, and they love them. They swear by them, because they're able to do everything from use them during the winter, and drag a small trail groomer behind the machine, and then they're able to go and use it during the off season, to help groom trails, when the swamps aren't frozen and they still need to keep them open, right? So they love them, and the biggest thing is it really doesn't leave that big of a footprint either on the ground. And
what about ice fishing? When we get into thin ice, and I would think that would really shine then.
Absolutely, not a doubt. There's actually even accessories that Argo offers to help you for ice fishing, right? So along with that amphibious aspect, to be able to have that peace of mind, there's always that thought, right? No ice is safe ice,
right?
But realistically, that worry and concern is gone. You have that peace of mind with an Argo, right? Worst case, you break through, you go buoyant, and you're floating. Right there, it's really a safety thing.
And I'm guessing you can growl it right out of if you're in breaking ice, you can put it in low range and just gradually work yourself right onto some better ice.
You can. You do have to work it a little bit. So one other benefit too is it is equipped with a winch. So if you have to, you're able to kind of shimmy out of that machine. Run that winch out and put a stick of sort through a hole, and then you're able to actually winch that machine out of that ice hole. So if you don't have tracks, that's typically what you'd have to do. But with the track system, I have seen it be able to climb out of up berms and ice dams.
I'm going to ask you as we go along, so the different options that we have that the Argo has available also, because I think that's something that people would be interested in too, especially as we're moving closer and closer to winter.
Yes.
And where I woke up last night and the wind was blowing even harder than it is now, although it's blowing plenty hard, ladies and gentlemen. But I thought it was ice hitting the windows, and I don't know if it was or not. It was probably rain combined with the wind. And I know that you have your shotgun here, Eric and Jeremy both have theirs. If we need the dogs, we have, I think there's 5 of them back at the farmhouse, and they are not out here with us right now. Thank goodness, with that skunk around in the darkness. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to keep track of. I think that it's almost time, as I look at my watch in the darkness, as it is plenty dark, and as we get a little bit closer to things, as I turn the light on so we can see, we still have about 30 minutes before it's shooting time, and it may be dark when it comes to shooting time with all the cloud cover and the nasty weather that we're experiencing. My father, when I was younger, used to tell me that what's good for the duck is bad for the duck hunter. And I think that this is a day that makes that very true.
Oh, yes. Oh, most definitely.
So, Hunter Dutcher is my guest this morning, and we are talking Argo, which partnered with KFAN and Fan Outdoors to bring this very, very special broadcast to you. We are live from the Duck Blind out in western Minnesota and having an absolute blast. I have zero idea what's going to happen when the light comes around. My hope is that you will hear shooting, you will hear duck calling, you will hear excited individuals as the ducks are coming in, and sometimes if you're not paying close attention, they will pass you by before you have a chance. And then you'll just hear it go by. The other thing in the darkness with a duck hunt, and Hunter and I were talking about this before the broadcast, when you're in something very special about duck hunting in the early morning hours, as you're sitting with maybe a cup of coffee, and maybe not, maybe just chatting or maybe just sitting quietly, you'll hear the whistle of wings go over your head. And it's a unique sound that only a duck hunter will appreciate and hear in the early morning hours. Mornings are special. For a lot of people, they dread mornings because it means it's time to go to work. For a duck hunter, the coming of the light of the morning, first light, is a special time because the birds are moving. They are looking at decoys and looking for places to go, and that's when the excitement happens. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on our first ever live duck hunting broadcast, brought to you courtesy of our partners at Argo and Power Lodge. So we will take a pause, and we will be back with Mr. Tom Dokken, Dog questions, dog answers. That would be Tommy Dokken. Next on Fan Outdoors with Hunter Dutcher and yours truly. Oh, that's me. I'm Billy Hildebrand. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Fan.
Via Twitter, Captain KFAN, the gentleman who is listening to us making coffee in the duck boat. You know, and we're bringing you Fan Outdoors live from the duck blind. Making coffee in the duck boat has a real appeal to me. And I'll bet it'll have an appeal to our next guest also, because I know he's a duck hunter. I know he's a hunter of all sorts, and he is probably one of the world's most famous dog trainers for duck hunting and beyond. And that would be a friend of Fan Outdoors, Mr. Tom Dokken of Oak Ridge Kennels. Tom, good morning, my friend.
Hi, Billy. How are you today?
Well, not bad, although we're sitting out here, Tom, and the wind is blowing a gale, the rain is coming down, and it's a really ducky day, I guess.
Yeah, well, we were planning on being out this morning, actually, and we got super high winds, rain. I was going to be hunting with one of my good friends, Clay Thompson from Sport Dog, and last night we looked at the conditions and said, all right, I don't think I could be doing a phone conversation with Billy in pouring rain and 40-mile-an-hour winds. So we're going to be out tomorrow morning. So, yeah, I mean, out here, I'm in eastern South Dakota. We're going to start building an ark out here pretty soon because it is just water everywhere.
Oh, and not a drop to drink, Tom. That's probably the rest of this conversation. I mean, it's amazing. And the ducks, and we're in western Minnesota, and there's so much water on the ground that ducks have got anywhere in the world they want to set down, they can get wet feet.
Yeah, and out here, I mean, probably just like western Minnesota, none of these crops are coming out of the field. So
No.
any of these low depressions, think of these soybean fields with a low depression in them right now. Those ducks are like at the buffet table. And like you say, I mean, there's so much water that there's not a lot of ducks anywhere, but there's a few ducks in multiple places.
And that's well said, Tom, because that's right on. And why should these ducks have to go anywhere? The smorgasbord you just mentioned isn't going anywhere, and it doesn't need to go anywhere. They've got protection, they've got food, they've got everything that they need, and there's just no reason to get up and go.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to target what few divers this time of year are around, because they're not going to be using those, small little potholes for the most part. They're going to be on bigger water. So we're going to kind of target them because, right now it's just tough for the other birds. But hey, it's hunting season. You got to get out. That's the main thing.
And Tom, that was my whole goal. I've dreamt of doing a show like this for such a long time. I care not to remember. I can't remember, actually, very honestly. But to be out here and sharing some of the things that a duck hunter experiences with our listening audience, just as you do with them when we're talking dogs and training, it's, unless you're a duck hunter, there's things that people have no way to experience, and there's really not a legitimate way for words to express the whistling wings in the darkness, or a cup of coffee as you're waiting for the sun to come up, or the sun just beginning to peek over the horizon. That first bird that wings over that you may not even see, and a diver, group of divers that just go blasting Mach 5 over the decoys, and you shoot at the first one and the last one drops. All those things are so integral to a duck hunt.
I think duck hunting really transcends, any of the I just shot a bird and we're taking birds back home. I mean, like you just said, there's so many components to it. And there's that social component, too, being with friends. If you're sitting in a deer stand, it's different. You're not sharing that with somebody else. But when you're sitting in the duck blind with friends and you got your dog there as well, if you do have a dog, it's just a different kind of a thing. And, early on in your career, it seems like you go through a transition of having to shoot a limit of birds. And as you get older, it's, you take the time, to really kind of cherish those little things that, you just can't get anywhere else. And it's such a short season. And I look forward to this, 11 months out of the year, and it's there and it's gone. And you go, wait a minute, I want more of this. And
I'm not done
there anymore. I mean, it's like, and then when you get a day like today, when you can't get out, you're just chomping at the bit.
That's it right in a nutshell, Tom. I'm here with Hunter Dutcher from Power Lodge off Highway 10 and a couple of other dealerships. We're talking Argo this morning with all the water that's out there. But now that we're about 3 weeks into the duck season now, if guys have taken and gals have taken their dogs out, and there's something that you'd like to correct now, is this the time to do it, or should you just go through the season and make do and then work on some corrections?
Well, just some of the just real basics on a duck dog, and think about it. Sit there, stay there. I shoot. The bird falls, I tell you when to go. So, steadiness is one thing. If your dog is breaking constantly, what are you going to do? You got your hands full. You got the gun. You're trying to look at the bird. You shoot the gun, and the dog goes, and you got all of this kind of going on. So, if you got a dog right now that's breaking, just bring a lead with you, a leash, tie it off, and just kind of have the dog so he can't break. So that's one thing there. Right now, I mean, there's a multitude of things duck hunting. We just talked about all of the aspects of duck hunting. Well, the duck dog, decoys, boats, a layout blind, goose decoys, duck calls, goose. I mean, you just pile all these things on a dog, and if they haven't had any experience with that, think about how overwhelmed that dog can be if they haven't seen it before. Especially a puppy. We took a young pup out a week ago, first hunt, and he was, been training during the summer, but, real game experience is different than training. And I said, this hunt's going to be about 20 minutes long, and it's going to be, we're going to sit down, and whatever happens within the first 20 minutes, and then we're going to be done. Because, those youngsters, their attention span is so short, and you don't want them to get bored and lose interest. So, some hunts are different than others if you're thinking for dogs. Those older dogs, they'll sit from daylight till dusk looking at the sky just hoping to see a bird. Well, a puppy won't be that way. So, keep in mind that, when your dog is out there and you're trying a new environment, he'd never been in a layout blind or a duck boat. Those are all things that you got to go, well, give them a little break sometimes, because a lot of times they're trying to adjust to what you're doing.
And I think the break is well said, Tom, because if you think about it, it's hard to sit for a long period of time with nothing going on. But if you have all these things coming at you and you're expecting the dog to make that decision just as you would, or follow a command that you want, and you're giving it to them excited, it's a whole different ball game than the training scenario where everything is calm and everything is under control. That makes a difference too.
Oh, it is, and we react differently too. when you're in that hunting situation. And then, maybe you trained all summer, but did you have your buddies with you? Did you have another dog out there? I mean, and did you train in the dark? Did you take a boat ride in the dark?
Yeah.
All these things make a big difference. Young dogs too. I mean, it's pitch black out. They've never been in a boat, and all of a sudden, you expect them to jump in the boat, and away you go. Well,
yeah,
it just doesn't happen like that. In a perfect world, it would, but it just doesn't. So, I just think a lot of times too, and not putting pressure on your dog, especially you bring a dog into a new group of people. You're kind of under scrutiny there. Oh, here he comes with his dog. I wonder what this is going to be like. People have had bad experiences. So, and then, the rule that goes with that, please don't brag about them before the hunt starts, because that's kind of a kiss of death right there.
You got that right. Well, and Tom, I don't know, because I don't really care to hunt with a large group of people, and I don't care if it's upland game or waterfowl, that aren't familiar with a dog. When you put a young dog in that setting, it pretty much sets both you and the dog up to lose, because expectations that some other people might have of you and your dog are perhaps not realistic for the dog at a young age.
Well, it isn't too, and you got to decide what am I going to? Are you going to put your dog in that position to begin with? Sometimes you go, you know what? My dog's going to sit this one out, because you may want to, when things are starting to happen, be able to just work the dog and make sure he does things right. And unfortunately, a lot of cases, people don't realize that, and they just go, get the dog back in, or get him in here. We got more coming.
Yep.
And you're going, he's not ready for this. So that's why, like that puppy hunt that we did, that young dog, it's one person is working the dog, one person is shooting. And so we can control that. But I get what you mean. You bring a dog into a whole new group of people, and this goes for maybe some of your listeners out there that are hunting with somebody who has a dog. Think about what that person has put into that dog and the work that they've done with it. Give them a chance to do it. Who's going to shoot cripples if you're hunting on the water? I mean, safety. Who's gonna do that? You got to think about dog safety, some of those things. So there is something that goes into it. So those of you who don't have a dog, but somebody's coming with it, yeah, there is pressure, to make sure that dog works well. So kind of keep that in mind as well.
Our guest is Tom Dokken of Oak Ridge Kennels, and we're talking dogs, we're talking duck hunting, we're talking live duck hunting on Fan Outdoors right now, as my son Eric just grabbed his gun and uncased it and took it down to the water's edge. We must be getting real close to... we are actually, Tom. We're within 2 minutes of legal shooting time. And
boy.
Yeah, I know, but it's dark to the point that I defy you to tell me what species it is coming in over decoys right now.
Yeah, and in that magic time, that first 20 minutes of shooting light, I mean, that's when everything starts to happen. So, yeah, and that duck identification is, definitely a part of it. Tina's actually, I'm a little envious because, the Minnesota season has started, and, she's, shot more ducks than I have so far. So I got some catch up to do here, to be honest with you.
Well, maybe you talk to her and just let her put one shell in the gun, Tom, and then you can use 3.
You're right. You are right.
Hey, we have to take a pause. You okay holding with us?
Oh, you bet.
Excellent. Tom Dokken, like I said, is our guest right now on the phone. And Hunter is along with us, too. Hunter is from Power Lodge and Argo. They're one of Argo's very special dealers. We're talking Argo as we go along, too. And when we come back, we'll talk a bit with Hunter Dutcher about Argo. As we can see the water... And this is the first time Hunter has been able to see the water, too. It's fairly big water. And we are looking, as Tom Dokken is, he will look tomorrow. And he's graciously missed his duck hunting this morning so that he could join us too. So we'll take a very brief pause. Be back with more Fan Outdoors. Tom Dokken and Hunter Dutcher next after this.
This is Fan.
The Fan.
Just off of the beaten path, a little dot on a state road map. That's where I was born and where I'll die.
Well, I was looking for my coffee, because I've always got coffee when we broadcast Fan Outdoors, and I wasn't able to find it. I found it. The cup had come, the opening of my travel mug had come open, and I have a seat full of coffee. Yep. And we were just down right in front of us. We have a couple dozen diver decoys, and we have not seen anything yet, but that's kind of what the hunt is about. It's not always getting, and it's not always shooting, but when it happens, it's an intense, exciting time, and it happens all of a sudden. Hunter Dutcher is our guest with Argo, Minnesota, and Power Lodge, or Argo and Power Lodge, right off Highway 10, and just outside of Anoka in Minnesota. And our on-the-phone guest is Mr. Tom Dokken of Dokken's Oak Ridge Kennels. And Tommy, as you wait for your hunt tomorrow, and Tina having outshot you as far as bringing home the bacon, so to speak, so far this year, what kind of a hunting season have you had thus far?
Well, I opened up last weekend here in South Dakota, and I look forward to this all year long. And I get out here, and I'm all set up, and I'm hunting big water, right? And I go, all right, they predict 15 to 20 mile an hour winds, which I like some wind, when I'm hunting. I want those birds to get moving. I get all set up, and it's a little calm right now, but boy, that wind's going to pick up. I'm sitting there, get all the decoys out. It is flat. It's water skiing time. and there is, and I've got, actually one of the Lukoski dogs with me that I wanted to shoot a few ducks for. So I'm sitting there, and the dog is like, yeah, okay, it's going to happen, right?
You promised.
We really watched some nice flights of cormorants that morning, and I drank a half a thermos of coffee, and we picked up and headed back in. So if that tells you anything about how it's been so far, but it's just a little slow this time of year. Now, Tina has been duck hunting back home, and wood ducks, those early season ducks. So she's had some nice wood duck hunts. She was hunting with Lee Chose and his daughter Gretchen last weekend, and they got some ducks. So yeah, I'm trying to catch up here a little bit.
Well, and that's not all bad either. But I know from the predictions of ducks that it was expected to be a much different duck season in Minnesota than what I have heard from duck hunters I talked to. But I think that nobody could have predicted all the water on the landscape, and that makes such a difference.
Yeah, and the type of hunting right now, a lot of these lakes out here where we're at, they were down as far as water, so those cattails grew out, probably 15, 20 yards from shore, where, you could sit on shore in a lot of cases and hunt. Now, it's chest deep out to the edge of the cattail. So, you were talking to Argo. So you need something out here right now that you can get to the edge of those cattails to put your decoys out. And I got a good friend. I'm not trying to do a plug here, but I got a good friend out here that has a Argo, and muddy fields and some of these bodies of water. You kind of need to change your game plan a little bit this year for how you're going to set up.
And hey, Hunter, that makes a big difference too. Would the Argo go through the things that Tom's talking about?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. I mean, it's the best thing about them is I mean, with the wheels, I mean they're phenomenal. You know, and if you do find yourself that you are kind of starting to get stuck a little bit, you know, they offer different kind of track systems for them. You know, throw those on, gives you a little more flotation through the thicker stuff. But otherwise, you're able to just kind of float right over it.
And Tommy, I talked to one of the outfitters up around Devil's Lake, Kyle Blanchfield, and this is a number of years ago, but he was using, I can't remember what he was using, but he had tracks on it, and the reason he had tracks was because he didn't want to leave the footprint in the farmer's fields that he was hunting, and I think that makes a big difference in these wet conditions for people who are working the ground and don't want to come back and have to fix your tracks.
Yeah, and I think the farmers appreciate that. And, you know, we're talking fall duck hunting here, but, you know, that early spring goose season when all those fields are just a mess. I mean, a lot of times you can't even get out there. So, you know, that Argo is going to put you out where you can't go. Even with a four-wheeler, you can't get out in a lot of those muddy conditions. So, yeah, you know, duck hunting, think about pheasant hunting. A vest, a shotgun, and a dog, and away you go. Yeah. I think duck hunting is like Gear City. I mean, you can have gear for any kind of, you know, environment. So, you know, it's just part of the whole arsenal you have to be a duck hunter. But you know what? I don't know any duck hunters that regret having to buy gear. and you don't need just one part of the gear. You need 9,000 varieties of it, and you use about 10% of what you buy.
Okay, Tom, I got a question for you, my friend, and it has to do with little critters that are black with white stripes coming down the back. And I ran into one with my young dog, which you had out at your place for a while, and she and I didn't like it, and I didn't care for her especially. It's awful, buddy. I mean, it's awful. Is there any way to keep that from happening that you know of? Other than keep the dog at home?
You got time for a quick story?
You bet.
Well, my good friend I was talking about, I'm going to be duck hunting with tomorrow. His first year out in South Dakota here, we were pheasant hunting, and my dog at the time, Rookie, he gets birdie, goes into the cover, and okay, get ready. He comes back out, and he is darn near puking, and I go, I can just tell what happened. And he comes out, he got a direct hit, right? And, I mean, he's like feeling sorry for himself. He's coming back, and what should I do? And Clay had never experienced this before, and he goes, well, I bet he'll never do that again. And I said, well, did you ever get sick after having a few too many beers? And he goes, did you quit doing that? And he goes, no. And the next day, that same dog did it again.
Tom.
You know, it's, and one other time years ago, we were in South Dakota, had a friend, he had a GMC Jimmy, right? And you some people don't know what that is, but it's an enclosed, it's like an SUV.
Yeah.
And this vehicle, you'd get into it, and he'd make you take a shower before you got into it. And it was his vehicle. When we were leaving, it was the last half hour of the hunt, his dog got sprayed by a skunk. And we had to get back to Minnesota. And thank God it was his dog. And that dog rode with us in that GMC Jimmy all the way back, 4 hours back home.
Oh, Tom.
Oh, man, I'm telling you what. But you know what? You got to get the hydrogen peroxide. You got to have baking soda. And thank goodness, I mean, that is your best method of getting that smell out. And it works fantastic.
It does. I agree. And I've got that, what I call my skunk kit in the back seat of my truck. And I had to drive about 30 miles to replenish the hydrogen peroxide on Thursday afternoon after I used up what I had, fearing that it was going to happen again. And when you're talking stories, years ago, Eric, my oldest son, and I were in North Dakota, and my dog at the time, I can't remember which one it was, but she went down, I think it was, I can't remember. Could have been Tess. And she went down into the rushes and came out, and I could smell her long before she got there. And she got, just like you said, a full face full, and her mouth, she was foaming at the mouth, and came back up, and I looked at Eric, and he was a young boy, and I said, Eric, hey buddy, what do you think we should do? He looked at me in all seriousness, said, Dad, shoot the dog. I said, no, we're not going to shoot the dog.
Oh. Well,
it was awful.
Well, I think that there are easier methods to take care of the problem.
I think so too, and I think at the time we tried the tomato juice, which was that was a farce, and that did nothing except turn the gold dog red, and it made no difference. So we had it was a pickup, thankfully, and the dog rode in the kennel in the back, and I think we threw the kennel away when we got home.
Oh boy, yeah,
but
yeah,
it's a tough deal. So what I'm hearing you're saying is you're just going to have to put up with it if it happens to you.
No, and it's just some dogs can't lay off that stuff. They just can't. And porcupines. I mean, it's another one. It's like you just had this happen to you like last weekend, and you forgot what happened. I don't know. And then, you get some of your versatile breeds like your Drothauers and some of those dogs that, they were bred to hunt fur as well as birds. And a lot of times they go like, you know what? I'm willing to pick a fight here. I don't care if it's a raccoon. I don't care if it's a grizzly bear. I'm in. And they relish it sometimes. It's like, oh boy, here we go again. But you know what? Sometimes we don't learn our lessons the way, and our parents probably go, didn't that just happen to you before? And you go, yeah. Well, didn't you learn? Well, I guess not. So, okay. I mean, hey, they're a lot like we are in a lot of ways.
All right. Well, I hear your answer, and I concur with it, and I'll just be quiet now and take my medicine, so to speak. With that being said, when you mentioned the versatile dogs, Tom, and I don't care who it is, anybody that has their own dog and believes in the breed, whether it be Lab or Goldens or Brittany's or Drothaar or whatever it is, they're the one, and they're going to stand up for their breed because it's their favorite. But each of them do have strengths, and each of them do have some weaknesses. How does a person find out, or is it just word of mouth?
Well, nowadays, I mean, there's so much information out there, whereas before it wasn't. And, the hardest thing is you go to somebody who's really into a breed, and, they're passionate about it, and are, sometimes you won't get the real message of what the dogs can do. I would say always think about what you hunt, and then how often you hunt it, and what's your primary. And that versatile, is a thing. Well, I hunt a little bit of ducks, and I do hunt some pheasants. I might hunt some grouse. And I want a pointing dog, or I want a flushing dog. And then kind of go, where's the middle of the road breed that can do a bit of everything? And then nowadays, think about these dogs live in the house most of the time now. So what breed do I want in the house, which is a 99% of the year kind of thing, and say, and how much exercise does this dog require? How much space does it require? That like pointing dogs, you got to get them out and exercise them. You can't coop them up and expect them to be happy with that. So, do I live where I can get them out and run them? And most dogs are going to be that way anyways. And then figure that part out. And then just go from there. And then there's, specialists. If you're going to be hunting quail or big time upland birds, sharptails, prairie chickens, maybe rough grouse. Well, maybe if that's your deal, I think along the pointing lines. If you go, well, I'm a goose hunter, Well, okay, then you're pretty much gonna go, all right, a retrieving breed, or I'm a big water duck hunter and I'm a late season waterfowl hunter. Well, then that's not gonna be, like a Wiesler or a Weimaraner. That's just not what they're cut out for. So.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. And one other question too, and if you've got let's say a pointing dog, we're right around the corner from Minnesota's pheasant season, and the Dakotas also, and you've got a pointing dog whose points are not real solid. How do you go ahead and work on that to steady up the points? And I'm coming to you from a former retriever guy too, and I just don't know how to do that.
Well, perfect example. You go, I was a retriever guy. So a lot with a retriever, okay, backyard, throw the dummies, work on steadiness, work on the retrieve, and okay, we got the fundamentals down there pretty good, and transitioning to some birds, make sure they understand what it is. If you have a pointing breed, you can't put a dummy in the backyard and say, I want you to point this and pretend that this is going to be a bird. You're almost relegated to you have to have some birds on hand. I mean, and it's just, in reality, a lot of times, like, well, I live in suburbia, and me having birds in a cage in my backyard, people are probably going to think I'm crazy. But unless you can get them on a regular basis on birds where, they can point a bird, and sometimes you want it to fly away. If they creep in, you want that bird to get away to show them that, hey, if you creep, and start pushing that bird, it's going to get away. And that's going to steady up a point where that dog goes, you know what? I can't be pushing this bird because there's no reward for me. And that's training wise. If you point and bust a point for a pointing dog, I'm not shooting it for you. And training, I'm not shooting it. So they're going to learn that if I hold point, I get the reward. Okay. Whereas with a flushing dog, if you flush it, I'm shooting it. So it's a wide open game. So you really have to have some bird contact on a somewhat regular basis. And let's just say you live in an area and hunting season, you live in an area where the birds are galore. Well, you have the opportunity for that dog to, progress. But if you're only going to shoot 5 or 10 birds a year and you're not making a lot of bird contact, it's hard to develop a dog.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense too. And when people have young dogs, new puppies and that, how old before they stop being a puppy in your opinion?
Well, that's a good one. Because I've had my own personal dogs as like, hey, you're 5 years old. It's time to not, it's one thing that you've got them obedience trained and you got them under control and here's how I expect you to behave and this is what you're going to behave like. And if it's up to them, they go like, well, here's how I'm going to behave. Some of them just mature way faster. And kids are going to be that way too. We were with friends last night and had dinner, and they were talking about this young kid. He's a 7th grader, and he has his own business already started. And she said, "Yeah, this kid is like an old soul. I mean, he's not like your typical 7th grader." And dogs are a lot like that. Some mature like really quick, but on the most part, to be honest with you, females mature quicker. Anyways, they just do. We knew that. I mean, we were like, what were we like in 7th grade? And the girls were like, really? Okay. Yeah. So
they're still saying that to me, Tom.
and I'm still working on it. And you know how old I am. But
heavens.
That's just the way they are. Some just mature quicker.
So it just doesn't. There's no magic age that they hit that they should be mature.
No, but there's no excuse for them not. But training makes them manageable and makes them so you can manufacture, to be honest with you, with obedience and control, the kind of dog that you want. So it's not like, well, I'm going to wait till he's 6 because, he's kind of immature, so he doesn't have to sit or come or any of those other things. So if you have one, that it really acts puppyish and don't make excuses for the fact that they don't have to listen because you've got to live with them the rest of the year.
Tommy, I've run out of time again, but I do want to talk to you sometime fairly soon about sport dog and the proper use of e-collars and that too, because I think that's a topic that I have been remiss on talking with people about here on Fan Outdoors, because it's something that I think that people have misconceptions about the proper use and really what they do. But that's, I think, a topic for another time. So that being said, thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time, and I wish you nothing but success tomorrow.
Oh, and I didn't hear any shots in the background there, so I hope they start shooting soon.
Yeah, I know. We just talked to the guys right ahead of us, and it's pretty dismal out there right now. So yeah. I guess it's not really surprising. We didn't expect a whole lot, but it's still hunting, and it's still there's still the chance that it's all going to happen in just a moment.
Well, drink some coffee and tell some stories.
There you go. That's what the good thing about duck hunting, too. There are always stories. Tom, thank you, sir.
All right, Billy. Take care.
You too. That's Tommy Dokken. And Hunter Dutcher is with us also. Hunter, when we're talking about Argo and we're talking about some of the things that duck hunting does, and in your past experiences as a duck hunter, too, can you think of times in your past where the Argo itself would have been an absolute savior?
Oh, yes. Oh, man. The countless cattails and just long grass going through. I mean, being able to just get into a machine that you can just kind of just beeline for your spot and not have to navigate and trip over the stumps and the stuff you can't see. That does get old, and you hate going out for a hunt on a Saturday and you're still feeling it the Thursday of that week. But no doubt that the Argo would be able to get through any of the wetlands or cattails that are out there.
Okay, and I hear some shots. I wonder if that's our guys. I don't think so, but it's not very far away. And usually what's said is when we used to hear gunfire or do hear gunfire, my father would say, "Ducks in a minute. Ducks in a minute." So we're going to take a very brief pause, and I will just leave you with Ducks in a Minute. We'll be right back.
This is Fan Out
Podcasts.
Welcome back to Fan Outdoors. Time again for fishing tips with Tackle Terry Tuma, presented by Clam Outdoors.
Well, each week we talk with Tackle Terry Tuma a little about fishing and what's going on in the world of water and fins. We're in the world of water and feathers right now with the heavy wind blowing and the goose calling in the background and the rain coming down. No shortage of rain. Tackle, good morning, my friend.
Well, good morning to you and good morning, everyone. Hey, I think I could take the boat and launch it right outside the garage.
I think you're probably right, buddy, and it's not going to end anytime soon.
No, I just listened to the updated forecast and making a decision what I'm going to do today. Sounds like we could be in for some very heavy rain this morning.
Yep, I think it's predicted to come here about 8:30, but I think they might have missed it, too, because it's raining cats and dogs right now.
Yeah, it's just literally unbelievable with all the rain that we've been getting, the moisture. But one thing is that I guess let's just hope all this water that we've had this summer is not going to be equivalent to snow this winter.
Well, Terry, and the other thing with the rain now, I hope it doesn't end up to be slush on ice when we get hard water, because that's the death knell for ice fishing.
Oh, definitely. We were visiting with, in fact, I was at a get-together last evening, and we were talking about ice fishing with, the wheelhouses and so forth, and just talking about ice fishing in general. Hopefully, when can the wheelhouse be put out? What about getting ready for ice fishing? And but you're right, very, very much so. But, we still got some good fall fishing coming up.
I agree, Terry, and we found it about a week ago, too, and I think you did, too, but we had an absolute blast fishing walleyes, and it was phenomenal, it was fun, it was predictable, and my boat's now winterized, so I'm going to miss it.
Oh, you're right. You know, you are going to miss it, but of course you do a lot of hunting, so that sort of carries us over to ice fishing. But yeah, walleye fishing at this time of the year, you know, like you mentioned, the jig and a minnow was very productive. Live bait rigging is good. You can short line, you can long line, throw crankbait. There's so many different applications to get these fall walleyes.
Yeah, I agree, Terry. And will that stop before ice, do you think, or is that going to continue on up to ice out?
It should really continue all the way up to ice out, or I should say ice out till ice forms. And it's going to be a little bit dependent on what our weather pattern really does. But, you know, and these fish are going to move. There's no question about that under most conditions, depending on food sources and some sort of, you know, structure or habitat that's going to hold them in these specific locations. But we should have good fall fishing all the way up to freeze up.
I just heard a shot right outside. That sounded awful close, Hunter. Yeah. Hunter, with the Argo, and we've been talking about Argo all morning long, Terry, because they're partnering with us on this broadcast. With the Argo, if you're in shallow water like that, could you fish from it?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I've worked with many people that have actually set their machines up specifically for fishing.
Really?
Yeah. So they've actually wired in the navigation lights on the front and on the rear. And Argo actually also does offer an outboard bracket that you can put on the machine. And all the Argos, all models will accommodate up to a 9.9 motor.
Well, I don't know, Terry. What do you think of that? You could just drive it right down into the water, the amphibious part, and put your electronics on it, and then when you get done fishing, you drive it to the shore and just keep right on going.
Well, you know, that sounds like a very, very, what should you say, unique and handy, doesn't it?
It surely does. I mean, yeah. I can't tell you.
Yeah. Well, and maybe if you could do that, maybe early ice.
There you go. You got pre-ice.
Right.
Yeah. Terry, we're going to let you go as we get ready for the hunt right now, and I heard some shots, and I hope the dogs are busy right now, too, going out to get something. But that being said, let's catch up with you next weekend, okay?
Okay, sounds great, and good luck to you guys, and hey, everybody, hang on to your boats for just a couple more weeks.
There you go. That's Tackle Terry. Hang on to your boat. I think you better hang on to your hat, too, out here, because it's going to be blown away. Hunter, when we're talking about the Argo, too, you just mentioned about it fishing, but you also mentioned tracks as an option, and when we were talking with Tommy Dokken, what other options along with that are there?
Absolutely. So, to shed a little light on the track systems, Argo actually offers a couple of different track options. Okay, the one that I always recommend to people is going to be their rubber track. Okay, and now what this is it's an 18-inch track. Right, so on each side you've got 18 inches. So what this is doing, it gives you an extra 3 feet of flotation on this machine, right? For when you're going through those bogs and the bottomless swamps, right? And another option they have is a plastic track system as well. Now the reason I prefer the rubber over the plastic is I see the rubber as a more of a universal year-round track system, right? So this track system, it's designed to be able to run year-round. You can run it on your gravel roads. Just as well as you can in your deep snow and your swamps, right? And the reason I like the rubber is it gives you that extra climbing power, right? So it takes that machine and it extends that wheelbase, so you have no gaps in between tires. So when you're doing the stump climbing, the rock climbing, it's just a gradual climb over all those obstacles.
And that sounds like it's really easy. So, but let's take our first pause and our last pause before we go to break, and see if we can switch things up a little bit and get things a little bit more lined up. Those might be ducks. I think they are. I think they're coming. I hope so. We'll be right back after this. I'm kind of busy right now. I'm looking for, I don't know what they are. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Fan.
We're just about at the end of our broadcast, our live broadcast from the duck blind, and it's been fairly slow. There's some shooting off in the distance, and there's one shot fired by our group, and it was at a passing teal, I believe. And there's been some geese off in the duck in the distance also. So we're hoping yet that we have an opportunity. The hunt will go on. However, Hunter and yours truly and Eric and Jared and Dean are going to take the Argos that they brought up here, and we're going to go out and do some extreme trail riding, or what do you call it?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
We're going to go out and see what they'll do and learn a little something about them. And then, Hunter, next Saturday, will you join me and we can talk about this?
Certainly.
Excellent. Hey, I understand we have a pretty special guest, a couple of them on hold right now. And the first one we'll get to is the president of Argo itself, Mr. Brad Darling. Brad, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Billy. How are you this morning?
Well, it's cold, it's windy, it's raining, it's wonderful. And we're having it. We rode out in an Argo, and it's incredible. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's good. This morning when I heard all the rain coming down, I'm thinking, well, there's Billy testing out the amphibious Argo, but we usually
there
use
you
on the
go.
water
I
on
put
the
the
bottom side, not the top side.
I put the plugs in it too, Brad. You'd be happy with me.
Very good.
With that being said, and we talked briefly the other day, but what's your goal for Argo? What do you, as the president of the company, what do you envision for Argo?
Well, it's interesting. My background is from the power sports category, or the power sports business, side-by-sides and ATVs and snowmobiles. And I think the biggest thing for Argo is we do things differently, and I hope you experience that just on your ride out. Our slogan for the company is no boundaries, and we use that for our employees, our dealers, our customers. Essentially with an Argo, you can go anywhere.
Okay, and that's what Hunter and Dean are going to take us also, and we're going to go trying anywhere out here briefly, and Hunter's going to join me again next week where we have a chance in the more daylight, as it was pitch dark coming out. About the only critters that knew where we were was a skunk in front of us, and I wasn't going to let him lead the way because that would not come to any good anyway.
Exactly.
And that being said, no boundaries. Who are the owners and the buyers of Argo?
Well, we look at it, hunting is our number one. We survey our customers all the time, and hunters are awesome in every way of sharing what they want in an Argo. And, with our amphibious capabilities, better in mud and swamp, we get stuck way less often than you get in a traditional ATV or side-by-side. And then you've got this vehicle that is like skid steering, but you'll experience with our new Aurora, we've got what we call Argo progressive steering, which makes it a lot easier to ride and handles more like a UTV. So if you do get a little bit of stuck, you can kind of skid your way out of it, lack of a better term. And that's what really makes an Argo an Argo. We hear it from lots of people that get out in an Argo that, they have that special spot. They haven't been on their hunt land for years or ever, and an Argo will get them there. And then I think the other thing that's really, really exciting is when you see, grown men that have been hunting all their lives and slowly less hunting because of the challenges of getting older. They get in an Argo and they're back at it again. It's just awesome.
And Hunter mentioned that earlier in the broadcast too, Brad, and I find that extremely satisfying too for older hunters that remember the old days and make no bones about talking about the old days. But for them in an Argo, I can see where the old days become today, and I think that's pretty unique.
It is, and it's something we've changed this product over time, and listening to our owners has made the Argo what it is today. We've been doing this for over 50 years. The Argo started back in 1967, and and live through the peak of the ATV season or the ATV sales and then the UTV. But we continue to be there, and we're growing our dealer base to offer that in more areas. We now sell an Argo essentially in 72 different countries. It's a really exciting product.
And is it, if somebody is out there looking for an Argo, and Hunter is looking at me right now too, and if somebody is listening to us right now and says, I think that might be for me, is it something they can go in and buy off the show floor, or do they come in and order it ahead of time, or how does that work?
No, we've got a dealer network, so ArgoXTV.com will direct you to our dealers, and absolutely dealers stock the product. We say demo it first, demo it at the dealers. Getting in the seat of the Argo, our slogan is butts and seats. Definitely making sure we've got the right product for them, and we've grown the lines over the line of offerings over the last 3 years, and we're getting into an Argo at $79.99, and we've never been down to that level before. And part of that is growing the business. We're getting more volume, and we're understanding what our customers want, and it's starting at that factor of allowing people that we're looking at different product lines for hunting and getting an Argo. And I heard you earlier. Argo is as good for fishing as well. We do have an outboard motor bracket on it, and you can actually go out and do some fishing. But what you'll see the best is it'll get you into places where others can't. We like getting off the grid. Doesn't matter if it's waterways or difficult bogs or even ice fishing.
Brad, I for one thing, I want to say thank you. This has been a huge learning curve for me, and very not very often do I find that, and to be so enamored with a vehicle that I'm so excited about too, and can't wait later this morning to take it out and really learn a little bit more about Argo and what it'll do. And that being said, well, I just say thank you for partnering with us also and making this broadcast happen.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for everything as well. And I'm really interested in talking to you next week after you get your experience. We like all our Argo owners. It's amazing how the great stories they come out. I think you've had an opportunity to see one of our videos called The Calling. It is what an Argo does. It's awesome.
Excellent. Brad, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. We'll need that. No, I don't. I'll need that, but the Argo won't. As we get back there, let's, Hunter, we're going to check in with my normal co-host who is out in, I don't know where he is. Last week he was someplace else, and this week he's someplace else. And Bob St. Pierre, where in the world are you?
I'm in need of an Argo to get me out of where I am.
Is it wet?
Noah is preparing the ship where I am. I'm in northern Wisconsin, and it is raining cats and dogs. I'm at grouse camp, and I should be at duck camp with you, I think.
Well, we got rain, and we got wind, and we've got a lack of ducks, so that's all I can say. But it's hunting, and that's what it's all about. Has grouse camp and has met expectations thus far?
Yesterday was just beautiful in the woods. If I had to pick a day during the year that I consider my absolute favorite, it's always going to be October 3rd. And I just, it's the colors are starting to peak in the North Woods. There were grouse around, not a ton of grouse. My gut says the bird numbers are down a bit this year, but the woodcock flight is coming through, so there's a lot of shooting. It's a lot of fun for pointing dogs. I was in the woods with my uncle-in-law, who has a Brittany out of your line, and that pup had its first point and retrieve over a wild bird in the woods yesterday, and then did it a couple of times. So we have a couple young dogs at grouse camp this year, and the baton's getting passed for new dogs, and it was a lot of fun. It's great to see some of those young pups. The analogy is the light bulb starts turning on, and you could see that a couple times yesterday.
Oh my goodness. We waited all morning, and look at this. Here they are. And I'm not there. I think he's got... Remy is going in. We got a young dog here, Bob, and he's making the retrieve. Good for them. Oh, I thought we were going to miss that, and we didn't. My train of thought just chugged right on through, buddy. I'm sorry.
It's happened once or twice before.
It does. Maybe it wasn't a bus, so that's a good thing. But
You've been dreaming about this broadcast for a long time.
I have, man. You have no idea. And in my mind, I had it all laid out, and it didn't play out the way I had it decided. So, I guess and that's called hunting, I think.
Yeah.
But when are you coming back to Minnesota? What's that? When are you coming back to Minnesota?
I go to Ely on Monday evening for Sportsmen for the Boundary Waters event that I volunteer with. And then I will be in South Dakota after that for the Pheasants Forever National Board of Directors meetings. And I also have a live podcast at Terry Redmond Art Museum on Thursday in Watertown, South Dakota, Thursday at noon. So that'll be very fun.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll see you sometime when the ice freezes. But whenever you come back, have a good time in the meantime, will you?
Well, I know we've got at least a couple of days on the calendar where we're going to be in pheasant hunting together.
And I'll tell you about my skunk episode also, because I learned that there's not much you can do about it except whine.
I think you need to make a new some new quantities of the skunk recipe, because I've given all the ones you've given to me away to other hunters. So I think we should start marking them as Fan Outdoors skunk recipes.
There you go, buddy. All right, Bob. Hey, thanks for checking in, man, and safe travels, all right?
All right. Thanks, Cap.
We'll talk during the week. That's Bob St. Pierre, and he is in northern Wisconsin right now. Hunter Dutcher is my today's co-host, and we're sitting here, and as Eric and Jared just came through and saved the day, so there's no skunk in us, and that's probably a good thing. Otherwise, we would have had it. Hunter, when we go out, and are there things that we need to avoid with and not try with the Argo?
Not necessarily. One thing I enjoy doing, I always like to try to push the limit with these machines. Because as far as my experience goes, I've been able to navigate just about any terrain with them. I've run them through the coldest parts of winter, all the way to some of the wettest parts of the season. So with all the rain that we've had, I'm excited to take them out and see what we can do with them.
I'm really excited too.
Yeah.
Do I need to put my waders on?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think we should be okay.
All right. Well, good. I'll take your word for that. I've got muck boots on right now, and maybe that'll make it. And that being said, I think the music is playing. I'm all bummed out. I like this. This has been a dream I've had for so long, and I just want to say thank you for making it happen, buddy.
Absolutely, not a problem. Huge thanks to all my guys at the service, making it all happen. They keep the machines running, and also a big thanks to the guys at Argo as well.
Excellent.
For bringing me on.
Well, thank you to you and Dean and for coming along. I also want to say thank you to Tom Dokken for joining us, Tackle Terry for joining us, and Bob St. Pierre for checking in. For Hunter Dutcher, I'm Billy Hildebrand, and just saying good hunting to you, and we're about to continue having a blast. Till next Saturday morning, I will just say ta-ta, and I will see you next Saturday morning. Bye now.